Get a dragon gem.
Reveal top card. Ooh, love it here.
It could be a free soul. Question mark.
True.
Hey everyone, this is Curb and I bring you another standard match. As you can see, today's video features the famous Nexus Corps. On the left, we have my teammate Joshua piloting his Avantgarda deck, and on the right we have... Okay, to be perfectly honest, I don't really watch the Nexus Corps that often, so I'm not really familiar with who they are. I don't think I would have even recognized them if our team hadn't beaten them during Springfest this year. You can get on my case about not watching them, but in my defense, they don't watch me either. Or at least I hope they don't. Otherwise that makes things a lot more awkward for me. Alright, so let's seriously get into this match. So we do have Bastion going first. Of course, just riding up, playing the grade 1 Rooks, is it? No, I think Rooks is the... It doesn't matter. The Bastion grade 1. I think I mentioned it before, but I do have seen one person playing the Graham Grace grade 1, which I think is definitely a viable option, because there are a lot of instances where you're going to check the top card of the deck and notice that it's going to be something like that, a trigger that is just, I guess, not entirely worthless, because we did actually get the Blade Feather Dragon, so we'll at least be able to get it off board, and we are able to very effectively push some damage here. But at the same time, you know, if you don't high roll with that skill, you're losing out on a trigger, you're losing out on a PG, you're calling something you really don't want to be calling. So I definitely think there is a little bit of valuability to playing the Graham Grace grade 1 in that slot instead, but you know, to each their own. Anyways, we are going to be riding into the grade 2 here using the grade 1 skill in order to search out the grade 1 order card. Of course, we did manage to discard that habitable zone. That is going to let us kind of just keep our advantage train going. Once again, one of the things I do really like about Avantgarda is just kind of its ability to never really minus, and you do also have the deck thinning that, you know, most Broncates naturally already have, and then adding on to that the fact that you're almost never just like going minus. The fact that everything just replaces itself is honestly just what I think makes the deck as good as it is, and definitely a little bit of a sleeper hit. I wouldn't be surprised if some people catch up on Avantgarda, especially since now with the ban list there isn't really a definite best deck. I would say like Orphis is definitely a very strong deck. Bastion, which we see here, is a very strong deck, but they're not that much further along than any other deck that's pretty much viable in this instance. So going into these next couple of BCSs with the ban list, I think we only have 2 left, but we definitely might be seeing a whole bunch of just like random decks doing very well, getting into top 8 and maybe even taking the whole event. But I suppose getting back into the match, we did actually see a Hathaway called down there, of course calling it behind the Vanguard. Hathaway being almost completely free, just replacing itself, and then with the boost to the Vanguard, we are going to be able to just countercharge the counterblast that we use there, calling out the part, whatever it's called, Dragon, swinging at the Vanguard. This is honestly the instances that I really like this card. It's just another body that you can easily commit without having to worry, because you don't really want to be committing the ladies in the early game because you want to be able to use their skill, because their skill isn't on place, so that means you do have to wait until you get to that grade 3. But this card is definitely just a grade 2 that you can call down, swing at the Vanguard, and then with that Hathaway in the back, we don't even have to worry about hitting into a defensive, because our Vanguard will always be hitting over a defensive. And we did just see there a critical trigger coming on down, pushing Bastion all the way to 3, riding up into the grade 2. Skill of Rooks is going to be activated, revealing that Forbidal, as well as the grade 3 Bastion card, the new one from set 12. And in order to draw that card, just activating the Forbidal, going to be searching out 2 grade 3s, or alternatively we do see the grade 4 Bastion there, so that is definitely a viable option if we want to go for those drive checks. But of course we can't actually do it this turn, so it would just kind of be a preemptive, just, you know, for next turn going to use that skill. But chances are we're probably going to be able to draw into another Bastion within these next turns. And we do actually already have a grade 4 Bastion, we can see there in the hand. So explains why we went for the grade 3 cycle card, as well as the Alden. Actually playing the Alden, I know a lot of Bastion lists at the moment are not playing it, because without the Owl promo, you do tend to get easily damage denied, which I think we did see in the last Avantgarda versus Bastion match, where basically the Bastion player used Alden, and then they got damage denied, and were basically unable to really do anything. I mean, you can still get the 4 attacks, and don't get me wrong, those 4 attacks are still pretty good, but honestly, having 4 drive checks every turn is a ton of pressure, and definitely kind of just refuels your hand, which is something the Bastion deck definitely needs. So we do see something here kind of interesting. We see a Painkiller Angel being called out there to the back, which is not something I've seen in most Bastion lists, but you know, I guess it's fine. I don't really see any argument against it. I guess if you have the extra slots, you can go for it, but I don't know. It's a good card, so I don't really have much to say about it. Just kind of interesting. Definitely putting in some work here. A very kind of bad drive check. We did see the Persona Ride, and then I think that was another copy of Alden, using the Bastion skill here, of course, to restand. We did hit into a defensive trigger, so this cycle card is actually going to hit for a 28 still. So very good. I feel like the grade 3 cycle cards are great for any deck that just needs a beater. I don't know how I feel about it in Bastion. I feel like it's probably a good card, but I don't know. I'll be honest, I haven't really taken a look at a lot of Bastion lists. All the Bastion I've really seen is just that one grade 3, you just kind of spam it, but in this case, I guess we just don't do that. So very interesting play here. So we did get a defensive. We have 28 Ks on both of these columns, so there is the option of whether we want to just take this next one or whether we want to commit double 10k guards. I think we did the correct play there, just taking the damage, because we did happen to get that defensive, which basically means that we get to save more cards in hand. So, looks like Joshua is kind of deciding what he wants to discard here. Actually going to be discarding that Refurbishment Dock. Unfortunately, we did draw into it, meaning that Habitable Zone is going to be kind of dead later. And I think I've made this same mistake where you think, oh, I think I should just get rid of this, because like I don't want to play CB1 for it, and I don't have a Habitable Zone, so what are the chances that I draw into another one? And every single time that I pitch Refurbishment Dock, I always draw into the Habitable Zone like one turn later. So unfortunately, Refurbishment Dock is not one of the orders that you can actually get back. I think in this situation, if I am like Joshua, I believe he has 2 copies of the Deathwinds in his hand. I think we just pitch the Deathwinds, because unlike Refurbishment Dock, you can actually get that back. But this situation looks like we're probably just going to be playing the Dusting and then using the Avantgarda skill to put it in the Soul, because obviously you don't want to be using Deathwinds when you don't have a guaranteed restand, and of course you only have that guaranteed restand on those Persona Ride turns. But it looks like we do actually have 2 copies of the Lady, so if we wanted to kind of just, you know, have a decently strong turn, we could go for that. But I think that, at least the way I think Avantgarda should be played, is that you play a little bit conservatively, and that you kind of just, you know, hold back until you're ready to push as hard as you possibly can. But Avantgarda skill there used, plus 5k to the Vanguard, skill the Dusting. The opponent can't intercept, which obviously is not going to be an issue here, because Bastion doesn't have any intercepts, and well as denying the opponent for playing blitzes, which basically in most cases just means the Elementaria. But we do see a Lady coming on down here, activating its skill to Soul Blast. This is going to let us search a copy of essentially just Deathwinds in my build from either the drop zone or the deck. And I believe Joshua made a little bit of a misplay here. He was not familiar with my list and didn't realize that I only played 2 copies of Deathwinds, which I believe he managed to draw both of. So we are going to be activating this Lady skill for absolutely nothing, which is, you know, definitely great to see. That's something that can happen when you give your teammate your deck and you don't tell them your ratios. So if you ever lend a deck, make sure you kind of inform your teammate on what they should be expecting. Alright, so we're going to be shuffling that up, getting no skill. So having committed the Lady definitely hurts. At least when I play, you always want to be getting value off of her. That way, like I said, you're not really minusing with her. But, you know, even if you don't, you still have strong attackers. We do see the second lady committed, which is maybe a little questionable because that means that they're viable to be getting retired or tacked into, which is something you definitely do not want. You would definitely want to get as much value out of them as possible if you can. But, you know, sometimes you do just want to push. We do see the Vanguard swing here. Going to be hit with a no guard. It is a 38k. Hitting into defensive, so that is actually going to be pretty good here. So we're not going to have that much trouble actually guarding against all these attacks because those ladies are only going to be able to get up to 20k on their own. Of course, that doesn't really account for any triggers, which we didn't really see off of that first drive check. But swing once again for 28. Still a pretty good number here. Going to be calling down at least a 20k guard if we want to no pass it. But something interesting we see here is a double 15k guard here to make it a OT to pass. I think in this situation, you could have just committed the extra 5k to make it 20k. So we did kind of just waste a little bit of shield there. We wasted 10k shield. Hopefully that doesn't matter. I think that we probably should have just guarded 20k, the 15, and a 5k. I think we have a painkiller in hand, and I think I probably would have just committed the painkiller. I mean, sure, we can probably put it behind the Vanguard and use it as a boost to make sure we have a little bit more pressure there. But I think that in this instance, especially when you're a deck that plays a lot of grade 3s, you want to conserve as much shield value as possible. So we did actually see a front trigger coming off of that last drive check, which is going to make these ladies 30ks, meaning that they can actually not only hit the Vanguard, but they can actually also hit the rear guards, which you are going to be seeing the first layer swinging into the cycle card, the other one going for that really annoying grade 3 card. Now this is also just a 5k guard, so I think in this instance you probably just commit a 5k guard, but looks like we're actually going to be committing the 15k guard here instead, which again, we just wasted 20k shield here just over guarding when just to keep that extra painkiller in our hands. So Bastion starting off with a Persona ride, and things are looking to be pretty dicey here for Joshua. We've got 4 attacks, 4 drives, and a form up Chosen Knights, which is definitely something very interesting. I don't think I've ever seen a Bastion list play this, but it's definitely not a terrible card. You do give an extra 5k since we only need 4 grade 3 units, so 5k plus 1 drive, and I forget the last skill, which I'm not going to bother to look up. You can see it on screen. It's there. You read it. But as we can see, if we can take a look at Joshua's hand, I believe we have the second copy of the Death Winds, 2 copies of Persona Ride, and no PGs. So with that form up Chosen Knights, that is 5 drive checks that we're going to have to deal with this turn. We see the painkiller that we could have guarded with last turn, coming on down to boost the Vanguard. Now, of course, both of these swings are going to be pretty powerful. We see another Alden, the one from the drive check, not going to be able to really use its skill because obviously we want to conserve it for the Bastion drive check skill. But this first Alden swing already for a 38, which is a very good number. And when you don't have a PG, those numbers really stack up. So we're going to kind of have to bet on defensives here. Thankfully, we are only at 3, which means we can still take 2 more damage. But still, that is very risky. One critical trigger in any of these drive checks can put a huge damper on our survivability this turn. Our basic plan here is maybe get a defensive, take the guaranteed 1 damage, and then guard as efficiently as possible if we are able. Thankfully, we do have double intercept, so that's an extra 10k shield if we need it. But those are cards you do not want to be intercepting with. So this first attack might be the safest to take because we don't have to worry about any drive checks, and it is still very big on its own. But at the same time, you could guard this because it is just a guaranteed that we're not going to hit into anything. So it looks like we are going to opt to take that first attack, not going to be hitting into a defensive. So definitely pretty unfortunate there. Swing for 31, guarding for 43 for a 2 to pass. When we're seeing a very unfortunate drive check there of a Rooks, another Bastion, and then that grade 3 Dragon again. using the Painkiller skill here to retire and draw another card. And then, of course, using Bastion to restand that Alden, who's going to get another 5k when he swings, now being at 43. Using the skill to counterblast one, discarding a Bastion, and getting another 2 drive checks. So if we see a critical trigger here, it's totally possible that it's just over. But first drive check is going to be an Alden, second is going to be another copy of that grade 3 dragon, and we're going to hit into a defensive. So our ability to survive has just gone way up with this 30k attack. We have that front trigger, which is going to be a 43, just allowing us to live thanks to 5 drive checks of absolutely nothing and 1 defensive trigger, which definitely helped. So this is going to be our turn to kind of bring it back. We've got to deal 2 damage. We've got double lady on board. We've got Persona Ride. Our opponent literally drove checked 4 grade 3s. If there is a chance to close out the game, this is it. So now we do actually see that habitable zone in hand, which is deeply unfortunate that we got rid of that refurbishment dock earlier. We do see a Hathaway here, so at least we got another 10k booster. But if we had actually kept that refurbishment dock, we have plenty of CB, even if we had to play it for CB1 to just like draw a card, using the habitable zone to put the death winds probably, as well as that refurbishment dock, definitely would have come in handy because we don't have another booster. Unfortunately, the only real booster you play in Avantgarda is the Hathaway, but Hathaway is just like a 10k booster. I mean, everything that boosts in this deck is 10k because it's either a grade 2 or it's Hathaway. Thankfully, Hathaway does get that plus 2k even if you boost the rear guards. And personally, the main reason why I like that is because it makes numbers so easy. Doing your rear guard columns is actually just very, very easy in Avantgarda, but this is looking to be a very strong kill turn because this is the ideal Bastion setup. You got Death Winds, you got Double Lady. The only thing you could be asking for is the refurbishment dock and a final rear guard in that last slot. So just setting up the final preparations. Joshua probably still trying to read the cards, see if there's anything else he can do right now. And at the moment, there really isn't. I mean, we could theoretically call down that dragon, cycle out a little bit more, but it's kind of unnecessary. I think we do have just like 1 extra soul, but you might as well just keep it in case you draw another lady. Actually, we have 2 extra soul. We have the Death Winds and then the copy of Persona Ride. Joshua actually boosting with the Hathaway here, which is something I don't like doing because I want the extra pressure on the second attack, and we have plenty of CB, so we don't have to do that. But still, a 43k swing at the Vanguard, threatening for lethal. If we hit a critical trigger here, just like with the Alden last turn, it is completely just game over right here and now. Even if we PG this and we get a critical trigger, that's still pretty powerful because that Vanguard's going to be restanding regardless. But we do hit into a heal trigger here, so healing down to 4. So even if we don't kill this turn, we have a better chance of surviving. Not to mention we got a little Elementaria there. Bastion hitting into a draw trigger, which is definitely going to help bolster that hand as well as our defenses with that defensive. So Avantgarda is going to be restanding, discarding that Freiheit, restanding itself, swinging again, for this time for a 38, which is still a very good number. Don't get me wrong, although I would have preferred 33 and then 48, just because, you know, I think those numbers are just a little bit better, especially on the second swing. But swinging for that 38, definitely going to be pretty difficult to guard. We do have a fair amount of 15k shield, it looks like, but we are going to have to be guarding. Looks like that is, let's see, that's 30, so that's 53, so that is a no pass. I think we could have just guarded for, wait, no, that's fine, yeah, because that's a no, that's the lowest no pass that you can go for. So that was correct. We did hit into a critical trigger there, which is going to give another power boost to that lady, who with the boost is going to be able to reach a grand total of, let's see, Persona plus her, she's at 20, Death Winds, that's going to be a total of 60k with the trigger, double damage. We have to block this attack or we have basically 0 chance of living. Counting the cards in our hand, is it going to be enough to actually guard this 60k swing? Looks like we don't have enough, so that is going to be the match. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do all those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.